it's like you were talking about before. If the form for the 20 people who are about to be gassed are correct, then it looks fine because that's what you're trying to do is make a form. The fact that it's going to be 20 people's lives are going to be gone because this form is correct doesn't enter into their mind in the same weight as the fact that the form itself is correct and they've done the job.
Exactly right.
Agree with
follow
you.
the rules.
What is lacking is an insight into the key word is significance.
Mm-hmm.
What's lacking is an insight into the authentic significance of things.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if the list says these 20 people will be mailed a $20 utility bill refund, you then mail it to them, and it says these 20 people will be exterminated. You balk, you see, but the true insane person will very, very calmly process both the same way. And this is what I regard as insanity, rather than regarding extravagant behavior, ripping off clothes, screaming and carrying on.
Yeah.
In fact, you get this kind of insanity, this dispassionate insanity in times where great emotions are really appropriate. When someone has died, when some terrible calamity has happened, people will proceed as if nothing of great importance had occurred.
An opinion of your books, but it certainly won't be objective. But as a subjective opinion, as a personal opinion, we talked about your books a little while ago, how you'd hate to be relegated to an asteroid with your books. Are there any that particularly stand out in your mind, the 3 or 4 that you're proudest of? And, is there a common...
Yeah, if I didn't have to read them all, if I could, maybe a couple.
Which would be the worst?
I want
to get you through the leaf nights on the asteroid.
I want to qualify what I've said in denouncing my own writing, is that whenever I write a book, I really write as well as I can. That even includes Vulcan's Hammer and Doctor Futurity and On Teleporter. It isn't that I say, well, hell, I'm only being paid 3 cents, a word, what the fuck, I'll write it, crummy pay, crummy book. I really try to write a good book, but they don't all come out good. I mean, the intent is not sufficient to guarantee a good result. And some of the worst books I've written, like That Guy, are books which I labored over. I mean, the work that went into that book was
very complex. It shows great attention to detail.
It's incredible. Like I Am the Sky, which I think is a much better book, I wrote in 2 weeks. Okay, but I do try to write as good as I can, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And my agent says that actually the harder it is to write a book, usually the worse the book is. Those that really flow well are better, but even that doesn't hold true always. But I really like A Scanner Darkly. I really like Ubik. I really like Dr. Blood Money. I really like The Game Players of Titan. Did I mention Man in the High Castle?
No.
It's interesting, I didn't think of that. Like Eye in the Sky. I love Plans of the Alpha Moon because the entire thing works up to this one funny scene where they call off the attack on the rocket ship and the robot hasn't been told, and he goes and attacks it all, and he hammers on the door, and they say in the rocket, they say, "Who's that hammering on? Who's hammering on our ship?"
There's a lovely scene that I just fell into hysterics over. Reminded me of something out of a Raymond Chandler novel, where Rittersdorf spends about 2 pages near the end of the book trying to figure out who's on whose side, and is my enemy's enemy my friend, and if we're both on the side of Earth, how come she's trying to kill me? And he finally comes to the conclusion that there is no logical way that he could ever figure out this situation because there were just too many people doing
too many factors,
illogical things, and some of them entirely on their own, showing no loyalties at all except to themselves.
That's a funny book in many ways. I like The Simulacra. I really think The Simulacra is in some ways, a very fine book. That it's incredibly complex, a simulacrum. I mean, the number of characters. I mean, if you drew a diagram of it, I mean, I've tried to diagram that. It's almost impossible to diagram the simulacrum. So we've got. I don't care for Martian time slave. I really don't care for that. I read
That's
that.
really been talked about as one of your major
I
pieces,
know.
but I would agree with you. I didn't find it very original at all.
No, I think it's a dull book too.
Yeah.
I think it's an amazingly dull book.
The title is just beautiful. The title is great. The title sounds like every cheap science fiction novel
Yeah.
out of the 30s.
Of course, that wasn't my title, and that goes without
wasn't
saying.
it?
I was reading Now Wait for Last Year recently, and I liked as much as I read it, as far as I got. I had to break it off. I liked that.
How about Flow My Tears? You were talking at least about that.
I finally decided that I like the last part, but as a whole, I don't like it. I mean, I don't think it's totally satisfactory. I think that the last 100 pages is well written, but my appreciation for that diminishes continually. I mean, of course, then that's been replaced by Scanner Darkly. I mean, my appreciation is now directed at Scanner Darkly.
It's the newest one.
Yeah. So what we've got, Ubik. One that I vacillate about is Galactic Pot Humor. That sometimes it seems funny to me, and sometimes it seems stupid. Stupid. Nothing can be said for it. And another one is Maze of Death that I am not sure of. I get different reactions when I glance through it. So, I mean, there's one part in there, I don't know if you ever noticed, where the same conversation is repeated twice. It's a very convoluted conversation.
Alright, I think what I'm going to do is I'll put it up on the kitchen table and the plates and stuff. You can just come and
Okay.
do their thing.
The same whole conversation is repeated twice. It's long, and everybody's talking. They're all babbling away, and it's different. It isn't exactly the same. It's very carefully rewoven the second time, so that although it is the same conversation, it's recognizable as the same conversation, it is not the same conversation.
Did you ever see Last Year at Marienbad, the Alan Renee film?
No, I know of it. I've been told about it.
That's...
I don't like Do Androids Move Electric Sheep at all. I really loathe it.
Oh, good, because I have to tell you, I detest it.
There are certain books of mine that I really, wish I could shovel under, and that's one of them. Then I'm just sort of, like the three. An interesting one is the Three Stigmata, as far as I'm concerned. Is that I have read that and had the distinct impression that it was an extraordinary book. In fact, so extraordinary that it may have no peer. There may be a unique book in the history of writing that nothing was ever done like it. And then I've read it over, and I thought it was just completely crazy. That it was just an insane book that was not about insanity. It was insanity.
It's an illustration of itself. It's a self-illustrating book. It accomplishes both those things that you mentioned at the same time.
It's a weird book.
It moves so fast. I reread that recently. Everything changes so quickly that it really gets the point.
And if I were to pick favorite books of mine, that would be of yours. That would be one.
I suppose so. Yeah.
I really like.
I think that's a wise one. Really. I think that if I'm to be remembered, if anything that I write is retained within the cultural flow, that the Three Stigmata stands a very good chance, because either it'll eventually be consigned to oblivion as just a bizarre exercise in madness, or it will be considered a breakthrough book. This really raises the question of what does a writer get out of writing intrinsically when all the peripheral things, I mean, if you strip away money, recognition, admiration, those things, I mean, and you deal directly with his relationship with the book, what does he get back out of the book? I mean, I don't enjoy reading my writing. I don't like to see my books. I really don't like to look at them. I don't. It makes me uncomfortable to be in the presence of my own books. I tend to give my books away just for that reason. I don't like to have them around. I'll give away only copies of some of my editions, like the first paperback edition of Three Stigmata I gave to Joan. I have no copy of that. And
is it maybe satisfaction that you're looking for? Satisfaction in knowing that you've created something and that you've put the best possible work of Philip K. Dick on paper here?
No, because, I mean, what I may be able to do may not be any good, I mean, even though it's my best possible work. The one thing that intrinsically I get back from the writing, that is really intrinsic to the writing, and is not peripheral, and I regard money and recognition, admiration as peripheral, is that I have seen certain people, seen them do certain things, and have heard them say certain things, which I have felt should be preserved, that should not be the ephemera of the moment, that I have gotten these people down saying and doing these things. This is why Scanner was I think is important to me. That there, more than any other book, I was recording what actual people did and said, which would have vanished, into the ether. And I was in a position that no one else was in. I was in a position to go and to remember it, and later to recapture it. And they would never even know. They would never, these were, illiterate people, for the most part. I mean, I had no particular desire that they would ever know. That some of them weren't even alive to know. That the one thing that really means something to me is little braveries, little displays of strength and courage and something more than competence.
Does this get back to what we were talking about earlier with the small acts of kindness that separate humans from animals?
Exactly. I think, for instance, of something I saw, which is in Scanner, where this junkie was sitting there completely out of it. I didn't know at the time, but that's what it was. On junk, on heroin, just completely out of it, unable to move, unable to talk. And hearing this little junior high school kid trying to change a tire on our car, and hearing the jack slip, and the kid yelling. He was trying to hold up the back end of this 5,000-pound Pontiac, which was rolling backward on him. And this poor burned-out junkie, this guy who thought he had bugs all over him, who had almost no circuits left, was out of that living room, down through the front door and out there. And I was running, and I was going to stop the car with the car brake, and he knew that was too slow to That would have taken too long. You'd have to open the car door to do it. He just knocked the kid out of the way of the car. Just literally knocked him out of the way. And at that point, the car went right off the jack and came down, and it would have come right down on the kid, and could have broken his back.
Sure.
And this all happened I was still getting the door of the car open when he just hit the kid like a linebacker, and just knocked him out of the way. And at that instant, the jack gave. How they do a bumper jack. And then this burned-out creature, who's now dead, explained to me in the most, I said, shit, I said, I was too late, wasn't I? I said, by the time I said, I was too late. And he said, yeah, he said, and then he explained to me, he said, when I heard the car rolling and heard him yelling, he said, I knew there'd be no time as a convertible. He said, I could have leaped over the door into the seat. But he said it would have taken too long. And he had, this burned out brain had known what to do, And then he went back and sank back into, the incredible, brain suffocation of heroin, which just suffocates the brain, and lived only another year. But he not only had done the right thing, he knew why it had been the right thing. It wasn't just, he said, I knew there was no time to go for the brake pedal. He says, you see, we're talking about 5,000 pounds and an inclination in the driveway. It's an unfathomable mystery, because his brain was just burned out. I have never, I knew maybe one guy whose brain was more burned out. But also, there's another element here, was his caring, his concern for this kid. One time, later on, he gave this kid a leather jacket that I'd given him, beautiful tasseled leather jacket. He just, for something the kid had done, I had stayed with him all day. He gave him the leather jacket. It's an expensive jacket. I bought it. I know how much it cost. I know how much it meant to him. It was his most precious possession. He just gave it to the kid. And I saw him standing there buttoning. He was just dragged on the ground. The kid was so little, and the jacket was so big. And I thought, here we are. We're dealing with the debris of the human race. This is what Shockley would sweep into the incinerator. This guy, he wouldn't even be
to the showers.
Yeah. And I said, this guy is. One night we were driving home, and he was driving my Pontiac, and we had brake trouble, and we came to a red light, and I was almost asleep in the passenger seat, and I suddenly heard him pump the brake pedal up. He just split second, it had gone to the floorboard, and he had pumped it up. And at that second, a police car whizzed by in front, just coming out of the police station, just at high speed. And I realized that he'd saved our lives by that instantaneous reaction of pumping up the brake when it went all the way to the floorboard. And I looked at him and I said, your reaction time, there wasn't even any measurable interval. I said, and
the speed of light.
Yeah, neurons can't travel that fast, And he says, well, that's what you do when it goes to the floorboard. He says, you pump it. And I says, yeah, but you had to hit that thing like a sledgehammer, hitting, a wedge. I heard it. It woke me up. It woke me into complete wakefulness. And the sound was so abrupt, And then I saw the red light in the police car and everything like that. And the mystery to me of this burned out brain, this although it wasn't until later that I knew what had burned it out. It was I know exactly what burned it out. It was heavy metal deposits in the heroin had lodged in the neuroreceptor sites of his brain. and it was irreversible.
Heavy metal from something that they used to cut the heroin, or
Right.
just from,
Theater did it weird.
Lead or mercury, probably mercury.
mm.
And there was no hope for him, no hope at all.
No,
There was
that's
little left.
Irreversible. You can't do
Yeah.
anything. Even megavitamins won't clean that out of the brains.
And you know, like he was really quite dangerous because he was so crazed from the mercury poisoning. And yet he exhibited tenderness, he exhibited caring, and he exhibited appropriate behavior in emergency situations. And I really want you to use this part to tie it in with what we talked about first, because in 2 emergency situations he exhibited appropriate behavior and could rationally explain why he had chosen that behavior. He was fucked up in ways. Well, a lot of it's in skill. This was damage. This was not merely madness. This was damage. This was damage to a delicate instrument, the human brain, a mysterious instrument, the human brain. And yet, on some levels that are highly important, that brain still functioned. In levels of vast importance, he was still a human being with the finest attributes that human beings can display. And you know, I say this even though because he was a junkie, he was stealing everything I had. I didn't know at the time. Somebody was. You know, and I mean, I have no animosity toward him. I stand, you know, in a wonderment that this, I mean, probably an autopsy of that brain would have been unbelievable what it would show. And to get down on paper that some, you know, that if this person could exhibit these human qualities of caring and of alertness and adequate response in a crisis, then what marvelous capabilities all of our brains must have that we really, you know, and it's like to me, you know, after having sent my ship of, you know, my ship of inquiry out into the universe to find out the mysteries of the universe, the ship comes back finally after 26 years and says the greatest mystery in the universe is the human brain. And then I say, and what is the answer to the mystery? And it said, well, I just said it's the greatest mystery, didn't I? And by that,
Take a while to figure out. They don't call it.
We don't call it
mystery
that
for nothing.
You know? And there it all ends. You know, it ends.
You don't call it the great obvious.
Yeah. You know, so what I've learned in 26 years of writing and thinking about it all is all I have learned is where the greatest mystery of the universe is located. It's in our own, between our left ear and our right ear, hair and our
To your
beard.
left lobe and your right
Yeah,
lobe.
and it's just you know, it's just an incredible thing. It's like, you know, I've read, I'm sure this is true, there are more possible connections of neural circuitry in the brain than there are stars in the universe. And that should tip you off right there. But what you know, like if somebody said to me, what have you learned in, you know, these 26 years of writing and saying, you know, over and over again, asking what is reality? I said, well, I've learned that I don't understand the human brain, but man, do I admire it. And that's it.
I think that sounds like a good place to cut it off. Thank you very much, Philip Dick.
So now, do you want to proceed to another subject?
Well, let's just change direction slightly and talk a little bit about paranoia. Since we've been talking about what is reality and the question of psychiatric categories, you know, it appears that a great many of the
Let me say before you proceed any further that I promise to take my medication. Go ahead.
And I absolutely am not paranoid.
No matter what they say.
Yeah.
And I won't mix it with alcohol. So go ahead. 'Cause
Oh, well, we weren't going to accuse you of anything.
oh, yes, you were. I know what you were going to do. You were going to
Talked about it behind your back.
With
You've been
everybody.
planning it all the time. I knew you were working up to this question.
Bring in the white coats.
But please proceed as best you can.
Well, a great many of the protagonists of your book either are or
It's a
appear
lie.
to be.
It's a lie. It's something that's said about them by their enemies. Really, I resent that. On behalf of my protagonists, they're misunderstood. They're ahead of their time.
That's right. They're the only ones who really know what's going on.
Yes. I remember I wrote a letter once saying that I thought it was the government that hit my house when my files were blown up and all my papers were taken. And Dr. Willis McNally read the letter that I wrote Dick Geis, for his fanzine about that, which was the first time I'd ever said publicly what had happened. And he said, well, I understand that paranoia is total awareness. And I looked at him sourly, I think is what I would say if I were writing a description of it. I thought, oh shit, I mean, I can see where this is all going to lead. Go ahead.
Well,
I always know where it's going to lead.
That's